Okay. Whew. And let's go live over here as well. Okay. Welcome. I'm Ashlee Marie, and today I'm going to teach you how I make the St. Patrick's Day dinner that I make every single year, and I have for the last 16 years, and that is a shamrock shaped green St. Patrick's Day pizza. Try saying that 5 times fast. In fact, I took new pictures for this post, and I was rewriting it the other day, and I was sitting down typing how many ways can you say this? What's the best way to say this and get the point across what this is? Is it St. Patrick's Day pizza? Is it green shamrock pizza? If I say green shamrock pizza, do people think that it's shamrock flavored? So anyway, obviously as a cake decorator, I do a lot with food dyes. And so of course we're going to be using food dye to make the pizza dough green and to make the sauce green. Now if you're going with a classic tomato sauce for pizza, obviously red is very hard to turn into green. So I always do my chicken Alfredo pizza, one, because it's a white sauce, so it's very easy to dye green, and then you keep the crust green, the sauce green, and then it has a lot of green toppings, green onions, artichoke hearts, spinach, stuff like that. So and so that is why I go that route. About the only thing that's not green on the pizza is the chicken and the mozzarella cheese. But I was just thinking the other day, I've actually made my own mozzarella cheese in the past, so next year I should make my own mozzarella cheese and dye it green. So I might go that far. Anyway, hopefully I'm not the only one that goes a little crazy for holidays and makes crazy fun holiday meals. If you enjoy making crazy holiday dinners, I would love to hear your favorites. We have done for Halloween, we've done dinner and a pumpkin. Obviously I carve a pumpkin cake every year, and we do that for Halloween or for Thanksgiving or both. I do a lot of themed cakes, obviously, my snitch cake, my Santa cake, my Mickey Mouse jack-o'-lantern cake, but I also enjoy making like actual foods. So, and this pizza is a fun one because it's easy to dye and it's easy to shape. So I've actually done the same exact thing, but instead of for St. Patrick's Day, I've done it for Valentine's Day, and we dye everything pink and we make the pizza heart-shaped. And that's always fun. And that one you can actually go with a more classic pizza flavor as well, because the red works really well with the pink. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is get started with the dough. So, hi, love your hair. Thank you. This is new color. We went with some fun shades this time around. I love the way you make these videos from us. You are so welcome, Crystal, and thank you. I'm glad you like the hair as well. Kiranette, hello, and Lance, hi, yay, okay. We have people watching, so I know it's working, which is always a nice thing when you go live. All right, so pizza dough. I used to be scared of yeast doughs, as I'm sure a lot of other people were, because I'm totally self-taught. So every time there was something that I wanted to learn how to make, I just started doing research, or I just started to try making it and just made it until I failed. But last year, over in April, I was able to go over to Paris and do a whole week of cooking classes, which was so much fun, and I learned so much more. And I haven't been scared of yeast doughs in a couple years, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but taking these classes, I learned so much more about yeast doughs than I ever had before. In fact, I'm planning on doing a full video all about a couple of the French doughs that I learned how to make, and working with fresh yeast instead of dried yeast like we hear over in America, but that's not today. So today we're going to go with a more classic dried yeast like we use here in America. So let's get started. So I have my mixer. You can do this by hand, but obviously if you have a mixer with the dough hook, that's going to be a much easier way to go. So we're going to take our dried yeast and put that in the bowl, and then a teaspoon of sugar. Now, if a recipe has more sugar than just a teaspoon, you really only want to put the 1 teaspoon in while working with activating the yeast and blooming the yeast, and save the rest of the sugar to add later. Because this is a savory dinner, pizza, this is actually all of the sugar that's in here. Next up, we're going to add our warm water. So the trick for really good bloom and really good yeast activation is getting your water the right temperature. You want it to be between 110 degrees and 115 degrees. If it's hotter than that, it will kill the yeast. If it's cooler than that, the yeast is going to struggle to activate properly, and then it's going to take a little bit longer to get the rise going and everything else. So I'm going to take this water right now. It's lukewarm, and we're going to microwave it a little bit. And I'm going to start with 30 seconds. and then we're going to test the temperature. The other thing that I want to talk about, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, is a baking stone. I got this baking stone as a wedding gift, so gosh, how long ago was I married? 18 and a half years ago. And clearly it has been well loved. It doesn't matter that it looks like this. This is not, some things, you know, you want to throw away and you want to keep pretty. A good baking stone, that does not matter at all. The best way to take care of a good baking stone is actually to not get it wet. And if it is ever wet, do not put it in the oven until it is 100% completely dry, because these stones are porous and they'll get water in them. And then when you heat it in the oven, the water will expand and you will crack and break your baking stone. So you do not want to do that. So I'm going to start by putting this in the oven before I preheat it, because again, you also don't want to put the stone into an already hot oven. So I'm going to add this in here. And we're going to turn it on to 425 degrees and preheat it. Now, we'll actually not be baking for a little bit, but a lot of ovens are slow to preheat, and so it's better to give yourself time. Like if I put my pizza in the moment that my oven said it was 420 degrees, it wouldn't actually be 420 degrees. Okay, so for the water, I'm going to stir it before I take the temperature, because of course there's going to be hot spots from microwaving it. And we're going to, I'm just going to use my gun. It's not quite as accurate as like an actual thermometer, but it does the job good enough. Okay, so check that out. And we're not quite there yet. So I'm going to add a little bit of time. Maybe like 15 more seconds. You don't want to go for too long, because again, if you go too hot, it actually takes longer to cool. So it's better to heat it up in shorter increments. And it's also better to be a slightly under temperature than slightly over temperature as well. All right, so let's try this again. If you do go over temperature, you could always like throw an ice cube in there to cool it down on the quicker side of things. Okay, so let's try that again. 105. You know what? Or 106. I'm going to call that close enough, since I know that the gun thermometer isn't super accurate. And we're going to pour that in. And I'm just going to give that a quick stir to help break up any chunks of yeast that might be in there. Now you want to let this bloom for 5 to 10 minutes. When I don't have people waiting on me, I like to go for the full 10 minutes. When I do have people waiting on me, I'm going to stick with 5. And I always use timers for every aspect of my life, because otherwise things get forgotten or missed or left behind. So let's see if there's anything to catch up. You love the purple hair. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Gail. Hello from Ohio. Hello from North Carolina. Christy Goodrich, hi. Nicola, where are your earrings from? They are beautiful. Target. Thank you. I had to go with gold, and I thought coin looking for St. Patrick's Day, right? Gold coins. Your nanny had your spice rack, but your aunt got it. You know what? I actually got that spice rack from my sister when she got rid of it. And I peeled off all the labels and I put my own on, but it's been years since I got it, because I just cut it with a Cricut cutter, and I cut vinyl out and stuck them on. And now most letters are missing, so the cinnamon is like I. And my assistant, who helps me like measure out ingredients and stuff like that for all of the video filming that I do for clients, she doesn't know what all my spices are. So she's struggling. So I think it's time to redo my spice rack. And I don't love the openings in them because they're so small. It's hard to get my nice large measuring spoons in them. So they're not my favorite, but I do like the way it looks. But if anybody has a suggestion for a very pretty spice rack that has wider openings, I would be totally open to replacing that. Thank you so much. Heather, hi, I'm making Alfredo. All right, so we have a couple more minutes to wait for this yeast to finish blooming. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, about breads again. So this is yeast bread. You want the yeast to bloom. You don't want to go over temperature. And other than that, the yeast itself really isn't that hard. If you are worried that your yeast is too old, you can always test it just by doing this. Taking a little bit of yeast, a little bit of sugar, and some warm water, and just letting it sit for 5 minutes and seeing if it blooms. Like, check this out. We're only a couple minutes in, and we're already getting a lot of foaminess going on here. I don't know if you can see that. So I know that this is working. If you've used too hot of water, you're not going to get that same effect because it's killed that yeast so quickly. So you really should start to see an effect right away. So the other thing that I've noticed a lot of recipes, because again, I make recipe videos for other people, so they send me their recipes, I make a video, send it back. The thing that I've noticed about a lot of people's recipes is that they just give you an amount of flour and they have you throw it all in and mix it up and that's it. But the thing is, just like cakes and brownies and cookies and candy making, altitude has a huge effect on breads as well. So what I always do is I add half of the flour and mix it really good, nice and smooth, get all the chunks out, and then I add the flour just a little bit at a time until it starts to clean away the bowls. I would say I spent the first 10 years of my baking life making really hard, dense bread because I didn't realize that I was adding too much flour. So there's not like a good rule of thumb with flour the way there is with like high altitude cake alternations, but really it's just a go by feel and go by look aspect. So, all right, we are pretty close, so we're just going to move on now, even though it's not quite time. So the next thing that we're going to add is olive oil. Give that a little stir. And then here is half of my bread. Now I'm using bread flour in this recipe. There we go. All right, and I'm going to scrape the sides and make sure we have all of that liquid, and there we go. In there. Okay, now what we're going to start to do is add the other half of the flour, but we're only going to add it a 1/4 cup at a time. Now at the beginning you can add the 1/4 cups a little bit quicker, but as it starts to get close you want to slow it down and watch the dough before you add more. All right, so you can see as we're mixing it, it's starting to get those strands that are kind of starting to pull away, but this is not even close. This is still way too sticky. So we're going to keep going. It's amazing how quickly it changes. It goes from too sticky and too wet to just dry actually fairly quickly. So at the beginning you can start adding even 2/4 cups at the same time, but once you start getting to this stage where it's starting to pull away, where you're starting to see it get a little bit, I hate to use the word stringy, but that's kind of the best way to describe it. If you're drying out, clearly it's soaking up the moisture. This is when you want to make sure that you're adding a lot less flour every time. So let's try this. Add another 1/4 cup. You also want to start letting more time elapse between adding the 1/4 cups. So you can already see this starting to clean off the sides now. So if I added another 1/4 cup too soon, I wouldn't see the effect that I'm looking for. I'm going to turn this up now, make it more powerful. And we're definitely getting more cleaning going on. Look at that. total dork. I totally forgot one of my notes for myself because I was just making pizza dough, and that is when to add the dye. I actually recommend adding the dye after you've added the first half of the flour and before you've added all the rest, because it will incorporate really easily into a more liquidy dough, and it won't take quite as much kneading as it's gonna take now, and you'll get a nice smooth and even color, and you won't have any issues marbling. All right, so let's look at this now, and you can see how it's starting to clean the sides actually really good. But if I touch the dough, it's actually still really sticky, and this is actually not too bad. See how it's cleaning itself off my hands? So their dough is actually in a really good spot right now. But we want to add this color, and we want to knead it a little bit longer. So one of the other ways to test if your dough is ready or not is to pull some of it out, grab it by some four corners and pull it. And if it pulls and gets nice and thin, it's ready. If it rips fairly quickly, then you need to knead it a little bit longer. So good thing for me, I need to knead it longer anyway to add, look at my fingers now, to add the dough. So again, don't do as I do, do as I say, and add the dough in the more liquid stage of this. I'm getting low on green dye. Clearly I make this too much. And you can see what I mean by the marbling. It's going to be hard to get a nice even green color, but luckily I already made a batch of dough that we'll be working with for our final project. On this view, you can see how much it's cleaned itself off the side of the bowl. I actually really enjoy making breads, doughs, because it's a lot less cleaning than like a cake batter or a cookie dough, because it cleans the bowl itself. So cleanup is actually fairly easy. All right, let's check on the dough again and see how the stretch that we're getting. All right, so grab some of this, ball it up, and we actually got a fairly even color. I'm actually pretty impressed with that. All right, so now I'm going to grab my corners and I'm going to stretch. Oh, and I'm still getting a rip fairly quickly, so we're going to need a little bit longer. All right, so a couple questions. Am I using Celsius? No. I'm in America, so I'm using Fahrenheit. This is your first time viewing it. Hello from Barbados. Well, hello, welcome. I hope you enjoy this. Hope this will be the perfect dinner to accompany your rum shamrock shakes. Nice. And yes, this will be. Hello from Texas. Hello. Too much flour. Oh, wow. Marbled green. Yeah, so most people add too much flour. So yeah. A lot of people add too much flour, and that's the reason that I think most people really struggle with rolls and breads and doughs. The stickier you can leave your dough, actually, the less flour you can add, the more fluffy dough that you're gonna have at the end of the day. And if you knead it long enough, it actually gets rid of that sticky factor. And so, which I had no idea. I just always kept adding flour till it wasn't sticky. So don't be afraid of letting your dough be sticky. Honestly, at the end of the day, you'll be so much happier with the results. So let's test the dough again. No, my fingers aren't. They're so. All right, so now we have a nice stretch to the dough. I can feel it already. So when I ball it up, it kind of cleans itself off my fingers. And we're gonna grab our corners, and I'm gonna stretch and see how that's getting nice and thin and not ripping. This is ready. All right, so now we're going to get, I have a glass bowl that I've added oil to already, and I'm gonna put the dough in here. Let's see. Ooh. It's always such a mess having all these equipment that I need for later stacked close enough to grab. Ooh. Okay. So now I'm going to clean off the dough hook, and it should come easily clean as you are pulling this off, if you've kneaded it long enough. All right, so, and now it should, as it was doing as we were kneading it, it should easily pull away from the sides of your mixing bowl. Now, if you're doing this by hand, which you totally can, you just want to make sure that you're kneading it long enough. So it'll take longer if you're doing it by hand, but you can still get the same effect. Just make sure that you're doing that stretch test. All right, so now there's like still little pieces here left. If your dough is good enough, you should just be able to rub your hand over that and it should just pick itself up. It should be really easy to keep this bowl nice and clean. All right. Now we're gonna just kind of rotate this around in the bowl to get it oiled on all the sides. And we're gonna cover it and set it aside. And that's the other way that, that breads are affected by altitude, and that is, I'll put this by the other one, it's going to take a different amount of time depending on your altitude on the rising. So what you're looking for is for your dough to double in size and more than going by like an exact time. So for me, being at a high altitude, it's going to be a little bit different than someone at sea level letting their dough rise. So just watch it. I found that a nice sweet spot for me is like an hour and a half, but anywhere around an hour to an hour and a half has been good for me. All right, so let's clean up our counter and we're going to move on to the sauce. All right. So because I'm not making Alfredo as my like full dinner with full pasta and everything else, we're actually going to make a very small batch of this. So I have a much smaller pan out than normal. And let's see if we can get all this set up quickly. Oh, and I just tripped on something. I'm very graceful, what can I say? Okay, so I'm leaving all of my extra flour that we ended up not using over here on the side because we're going to use it as we roll out the dough later. And we're going to start by adding some butter to a pot. If I can get the camera to change, there we go. And there we go. Turn this on. And we're going to let that melt completely. It should not take very long. And then we're going to add some cornstarch and some flour. And this is the roux, this is the base. So basically we're making a white sauce with Parmesan as our base, as our Alfredo, because classic Alfredo with really high quality butter and a really high quality Parmesan and whipping cream and it tends to separate. It's amazing fresh, it tastes fantastic, but it's not necessarily a great sauce. So I'm making a white sauce, Parmesan flavored, so Alfredo, for our pizza sauce. And so we're starting with a roux. And now a lot of people use just butter and flour for that, but if you're going to add cheese later into your white sauce, cornstarch actually helps keep your cheese from getting stringy, and so I recommend substituting some of the flour out for a little bit of cornstarch. All right, and we are starting to melt here. Let's get that going. So I'm going to add the cornstarch and the flour and stir that together. Turn the temperature down a little bit now that the butter's melted and stir it into a paste-like mixture. There we go. So, and I have talked about this a lot before. I make a lot of things with white sauces. So if we use this white sauce right away, it's going to have great thickening abilities early on like this, but not much flavor. The longer that you cook this through, the darker the color will get, and it will actually create a more nuttier flavor. So kind of depending on what you're going for, you can wait a little longer or a little less. I tend to like going for a tannish color if I'm making a white sauce like this. If I'm making something like Creole dishes or Cajun dishes, you want to go for a much darker, they call it brick base. And it doesn't thicken as much that way, but it does create, I mean, it still is a thickener, but it doesn't thicken as powerfully as when it's lighter colored, but it has an amazing flavor. All right, so this is looking nice. So we're gonna add our milk and cream to this. Milk and cream. You can always just add half and half if you prefer, but I tend to go more on the milk side, less on the cream side. And let's face it, I always have milk and cream around. Half and half would be one more thing to buy. So I tend to, any recipe that calls for half and half, I just tend to make it myself because I always have milk and cream around. So I'm going to use a whisk really fast. Technically, you can just continue to do this with a wooden spoon, but just to make sure it doesn't get any like floury chunks, I like to quickly run a whisk through it just to kind of break anything up really fast. And I'm going to turn that temperature back up to medium because we want to bring this to a simmer. Okay, so now let's get to the Alfredo sauce. How do you keep the sauce from breaking when you reheat it? June, that is why I do this. This is the Alfredo sauce that I make. So it's not like a technically classic Italian Alfredo, but I can make a huge batch of it. It reheats beautifully without separating. It's great for putting on pizzas. It's great for dipping breadsticks in. It's great for, you know, so this is what I make for my Alfredo versus traditional Italian Alfredo. So that's me, my American cheater version, I guess. But it's all I've ever made and I love it. And technically a real good classic Alfredo, the American ingredients aren't quite good enough quality to really get the best results. So I lived in Italy and I had access to better butter and better Parmesan. You better believe I would be doing it the classic way, but I would always eat it fresh. I wouldn't like save it and reheat it. Does that make sense? Margaret, love the hair. Thank you so much. Are you using a food processor? Nope. This is just a pot over a cooker. And if you meant my mixer, that was just my mixer. That was just my Bosch Universal mixer. It's an open top mixer that I really like. Okay, so as you can see, this is already thickened up quite a bit. It's not, there's getting some little bubbles. There we go, some little bubbles on the edges right there. So I'm just kind of waiting for it to, there we go, see? We got some simmering going on. Perfect. So now I'm going to turn this down to low. Actually, I'm just going to turn it off because it will continue to thicken as it cools. So I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to add my Parmesan. Now I always use freshly grated Parmesan versus the store-bought pre-shredded Parmesan. And the reason for that is the pre-shredded Parmesan that you get at the store, I feel, one, they coat it to help so it like doesn't just stick back together in a blob. And I feel like the flavor is a lot more muted, a lot less quality, and so I end up having to use a lot more, and then I get a fakey flavor from the coating that they put on the shredded Parmesan. So for me, I always buy the blocks of Parmesan and I shred it myself for this. Now there's some things that I don't care about the fakey Parmesan-y flavor, but for a good sauce, I really care about the quality of the cheese. It's really important. I made Alfredo like this once with the fakey pre-shredded Parmesan and never again. So look how much that is thickening up already as it cools. Now we're going to add our salt and pepper. Now if you're making a white sauce like this, I actually recommend using a white pepper. If you don't mind the little black flakes though, you can use regular pepper. And white pepper is a lot finer than a regular pepper, and so you sometimes need to use a little bit more. All right, and then when you're making a cheese sauce like this, you want to be careful with your salt because all cheeses has different levels of salt. So add a little salt, taste it, add a little bit more salt, taste it, because you're looking to find that balance between the Parmesan and the salt. So I'm going to do a little taste with a tasting spoon. And it still is more tasting more on the floury side of things. So I'm going to add a little bit more salt. You can always add more Parmesan if you need to. But I find that this is just about right. Okay, so now we're going to add our green food dye and get this sauce nice and green. So see if I have it left in my little, ooh, I didn't realize how low I was. One more drop. Come on, baby, you can do it. All right, let's hope that that is enough. It's probably gonna be a pastel green. There we go. All right, so now we have this great sauce. It tastes great and it's green. So I'm going to set this aside. And we're going to now work on the rest of the pizza toppings. So I'm making a, ooh, hot. I'm making chicken Alfredo pizza, so we're gonna cook up some chicken now. I'm going to heat this pan up with some olive oil. And I'm gonna get out my chicken while that is heating. Garlic, onions, salt and pepper. Okay. Now you can just saute some chicken breasts, some chicken thighs, whatever you like. I like to pre-cut it because then it cooks faster, and I'm going to cut it up anyway, so why not get a nice crust on all sides of the chicken rather than cook it and shred it. But however you like to make chicken and it's easy and fast for you, do that. All right, so ooh, there we go. And I'm going to add some pepper. Ooh, lots of pepper apparently, and some salt. And get a new wooden spoon out. And break this up. And let that, I'm going to kind of stir it. Try to spread around that pepper and salt a little bit. Now to get a nice golden color on your chicken, you actually don't want to over stir it. What you want to do is heat up your pan nice and hot, add your chicken, and then let it sit for a while to get those nice golden edges. So now is a good time to answer some questions. So let's play catch up. Awesome, yummy. Use fresh Parmesan too. Good job, Margaret. Could you use brown butter to start the white sauce, or does it need to be from fresh butter? You can totally use brown butter to start it. You're going to get that nutty flavor very early on. Just make sure that you don't overcook it. And as you're cooking it, just make sure you cook it long enough to get the flour flavor out of it. But honestly, I would just do it. Personally, I would just do it from fresh. But yeah, no, you can totally use brown butter. You can actually use a lot of different fats to create a roux. I've seen people use shortening, butter, olive oil, vegetable oil, so really any like fats. I've seen coconut oil used too. So yeah, you can use anything you want. It's just kind of the end result and the end effect that you're trying to go for that you want to watch for. Hello from Michigan. Hello from Newcastle, England. Hello. You just tuned in from Oregon, my home. Finally made it to a live stream. Love your cookie videos. Thank you so much, Adriana. I miss Oregon so much. Let's see, I'm actually going to my little helper. Well, Tuesday's their day with their dad. So most Tuesdays, in fact, they were here when I started and they quietly snuck out about 10 minutes ago to go spend the day with their dad. So I only get them on Tuesdays that we trade or swap or whatnot. So usually that's why I picked Tuesdays for my live stream videos, because as fun as my little helpers are, it can be a little overwhelming. But in a couple weeks, I'm going to be on spring break. And in order to maintain doing a live on a Tuesday, we're not going to have my whole setup and all my lights and all this gorgeousness, but I can try to do a live stream on my phone. It'll probably only be on YouTube, and I will have helpers for that one, so that will be interesting, but we will give it a shot and see how it goes. All right, so this is starting to cook. You can see the edges already. You can hear the crispiness. You can see it's starting to get white on that other side. And I like to use a nice non-stick pan when I'm doing chicken like this. So do a little stir, flip it over onto the other side. You can see that nice golden color that we're getting from leaving it. So kind of the same thing, stir it once, flatten it out, and then leave it again. And it is amazing how loud cooking can get. I never really noticed that until I started doing these videos. Let's get a fan. We are getting some smoke. Get that out of the way. Okay. Let's see the question. Do you put the salt and pepper on the chicken when you cut it up, kind of like a marinade? You can. I personally just add it when I add it to the pot. But I'm also usually heating the pan while I'm cutting. I don't usually... When I'm cooking for myself, I don't pre-do all of this fanciness that I'm doing to make this go as smoothly as possible. Hello, Patsy. All right, so we're here getting a little closer on this. So now that we're about halfway through, I'm actually going to add some garlic to this. And cook that in with the chicken. You don't want to add the garlic too early because then the garlic will burn by the time the chicken is done cooking. So sometimes these get stuck on one side and they need a little extra help flipping over to the other side. And yes, I talk to my food when I'm making it. Flip. Flip. Yep, and flip. There we go. Ooh, I burned my fingers so many times, I don't even know that I have fingerprints anymore. Just because it's so much easier sometimes to just, get in there. Am I the only one who does this? Who's like OCD enough that she's coming in here and flipping all of her chicken? Make sure you get all the sides. Because there's not a lot much worse, in my opinion, than overcooked chicken. And so I don't know, I feel like I tend to overcook it if I just kind of stir and leave it and stir and leave it. So, all right. And now I'm going to add my green onions to this as well. Now you can just, oh man, what did my assistant do? Where's all the onion part of that green onions? Okay. I don't usually only use the green part of the green onions. I prefer to use the white part of the green onions, those part with the actual flavor. This is not what I usually do. I mean, you don't just lose the white part of the green onions. Not that big a deal. Anyway, the white part of the green onions is the part with all the flavor, so that's the part that I like to use. I don't go very far up the stem because I find just green for the sake of green pointless. But that's just me. Use whatever part of the green onion you like. Clearly, my assistant likes the green part. Yeah. So just a couple more minutes. You want to pull this off before when the chicken is perfectly cooked, because we're actually going to then bake the pizza, so it is going to get longer cooking time. It's going to dry it out a little bit more, so you don't want to overcook this. So this, check it out, is looking good and finished. We got some golden color on here, and we have mixed in our green onions. Now you can add the green onions just later to the top of the pizza at the very end, but I like adding it to the olive oil and sauteing it with the garlic and the chicken. I feel like it just gives the chicken and everything else a better flavor, but again, personal preference. That's the best part about making your own pizza, is that you can really personalize it. My kids and I, we make pizza, homemade pizza probably once a week, and my kids love it because they can mix and match and make their own. So this is just my favorite toppings. All right, let's put this right here and unplug this. Okay, so we have our dough rising. We have our sauce finished. We have our chicken cooked, and I have all of the other toppings already chopped and ready to go. So I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning and wiping down, and we are going to roll out the dough. So, all right. So the dough that we just made is still over there rising, but I pre-made some dough so that we could move on quickly and we didn't have to wait an hour or an hour and a half for the other batch. So here is this batch, and you can see it's risen beautifully. Let's get the side shot. Gorgeous. All right, so we're gonna knock it down and then grab it and pull it out of the bowl. I have some extra flour over here, and I'm going to put that down. So first thing I actually do with doughs is I'm actually going to kind of pull and stretch the dough around, and I'm pinching it underneath, see? And that is giving me a nice, pretty ball. So this actually, look at that bounce. Boom, boom, that was good. This actually is gonna make 2 pizzas. So I'm going to cut this in half, kind of depending on your pizza size. You can always make more. For my kids for pizza night, I'm putting this one over off to the side. But first I'm going to do what we were just doing. Pull it across, pinch underneath, pull it across, pinch underneath, pull it across, pinch underneath. So I'm getting this beautiful little ball. Get some flour on the bottom of it and set it aside. Then I can work with this one. Yeah. So we want to start with a nice ball because that'll be easier to get a nice even pizza. The other thing that you can do is on a clean surface on your counter, take that pinched bottom, put it on the counter, and see how I'm kind of spinning it? I'm going to go a little slower. And I'm using the sides of my hands to keep the dough pinching underneath. All right, so usually I go quicker. This is also how I do little balls of dough for rolls. And look how beautiful that brings that bottom together. Isn't that gorgeous? And then we have a nice pretty ball. So I'm gonna add more flour. Turn the fan off because we don't need that anymore. And I'm going to roll it up. So if you start with a nice round shape, it's easier to maintain a nice round shape. There we go. So this should make 2 like 12-inch pizzas. And notice I'm constantly rotating my dough because we all tend to push closer to our bodies, and as you get further away from your bodies, your pressure becomes less, and so you end up with a thicker dough on this side and a thinner dough on this side, and we don't want that. All right, let's spread this out. Can you hear all the bubbles popping as I'm doing this? It's kind of like a good dough. Pop, pop, pop. It's kind of like those popping things, right? All right, let's add a little bit more flour and brush off the excess flour. We're not just adding flour for the sake of adding flour. So what I need, the cooking school I went to in Paris when they were making breads, they had this awesome brush that brushed off the excess flour. I need to get me one of those. I'm still upset that I didn't buy myself one while I was there. I thought, oh, I'll order one on Amazon. But apparently I'm searching for the wrong thing because I am struggling to find it. Okay, so we have, pull that off. We have like a 10-inch circle now, so we're gonna go a little bit wider. But first, I'm gonna bring out some parchment paper. This is just a personal preference. You can just keep working on the counter, but I find by finishing this off on parchment paper, it's easier to transport to the oven, to and from the oven and the baking stone. All right, so we're gonna take our cutter again, and now we're gonna make our shamrock shape. So I kind of have a little point over here. So I'm trying to decide where I want like my leaves to go. I think I'm gonna make my stem down here. So I'm gonna do 2 little cuts like that. And then there's like the 1/3 mark and 1/3 mark. Do 1 little cut there, 1 little cut there. Make sure that they're all completely separated. Now I'm gonna take these corners right here, and I'm gonna push them kind of back into the dough. Same thing over here on this side. Push it back into the dough, Same thing over here on this side. Push it back into the dough. Now I kind of have a wonky shape here. I'm going to stretch that a little bit. So, and now I'm going to finish rolling this out because this makes a 12-inch pizza. So pull there, pull this one this way, and this leaf this way. There we go. What do you think? And you can keep kind of manipulating this if you want to, right? There we go. And I like the French rolling pin that I got because with the tapered ends, it's easier to kind of manipulate just rolling in like one little section. I never had one before. This is new. I got it from Top Notch Kitchenware, and I really like it. All right, so now we have our shamrock shape. I'm gonna pull this, my nice little stem out a little bit. All right, now we're gonna take a fork and we're gonna poke holes. And we're doing this because this is a very bubbly dough and we don't want the pizza to get huge, big bubbles, right? We don't want it to turn into pita pizza. We want this to stay on the flatter side. And don't worry about like your sauce leaking through or anything, because I don't know that you could put too many of these holes in it, because as it cooks, obviously they kind of stick back together. I need to get one of those rolling things for pizzas instead of the whole fork method thing. But anyway, all right, so at this, oops, wrong camera. At this point, that was lovely. At this point, you can top it and bake it just like you would see done at a pizza parlor. But personally, I find, especially with chicken as a topping, I find that with fresher ingredients, chickens and spinach and artichoke hearts and all that good stuff that we're going to put on here, if I put this pizza in for the full amount of time in order to cook the crust, I end up drying out my ingredients. Has anybody had a chicken on their pizza and just had it be super dry? Kind of unappealing, right? So what I do is I actually half bake my crust. So we're going to put this in the oven right directly onto the pizza stone, and we're going to bake it for 6 minutes. We're going to pull it out, add the toppings, and put it back in for 6 minutes. And that will completely cook our pizza crust. And it will give us nice little golden bits on the cheese on top of our pizza topping, but it's not going to super duper dry out the chicken. So personal preference, you do you. Do it however you like. Okay, so my trick for getting it in and out of the oven is a cookie sheet that has flat sides, because then I can just slide this right underneath, whoop, and I'm going to do the same thing to get it into the oven. I'm just going to go, here, I'll show you. I'm just going to go whoop and slide it, see, right on to the pizza sign. And I'm even going to make those noises, that whole whoop thing, yeah. Okay. Whoop. All right, so while that is in the oven, oh, timer. You guys got to stay on me. You know me and when I forget my timers and all that loveliness. So I was saying a little earlier, when we do family pizza night, I will sometimes cut the pizza into even smaller amounts and make like little 6-inch individual pizzas for the kids. They love doing that. When I'm in a hurry and I'm just making one kind of pizza instead of creating like a pizza bar and letting the kids do whatever they want, then I just roll out the big ones. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna repeat this and make another shamrock shape again, so you can see again how I do it. So if there's any questions, let me know. All right, let's see. Some pepperoni cut it up, kind of like a marinade, blah, blah, blah. You do that too. You talk to your crochet projects as well. I am glad I'm not the only one. And I love that you use the word dork. That's totally like our family term of endearment. And my ex-husband always hated it. He always took offense to it. But for me, dork has always been a loving term. So thank you. Yes, I'm a dork. And I know it. My dough is singing to me. I'm going to try to be quiet. Here, I'm going to put my microphone down here. Okay, I'm going to put this microphone down a little lower and see if you can hear it. like little fluffs. I love that. Oh, hold on. Putting my microphone back in place now. Ugh. Okay. So as you can see, when we first put this dough in the bowl, it was still really sticky, but after letting it rise for, let's see, how long did it rise for? For just over an hour, it's totally workable and pliable and movable. I try to keep it from sticking to the counter because the dough likes to bounce back. So if it does start to stick, which actually kind of helps it like stretch, I do flip it, twist it, roll it, but I don't mind that the dough bounces back because again, we're just kind of working on that stretch and it's going to give the dough a better final outcome. Okay, I'm going to add parchment paper again and flip it over. Kind of get it back into its round shape and decide where I want to create the shamrock for this one now. I think this has a kind of a natural third. Okay, so I'm going to create the end here, and don't cut too far in because we're going to roll this out farther. We're going to stretch this farther. Let's see. Okay, so once again, I'm going to bring these ends, kind of press those together to kind of round out my shamrock a little bit. And no shamrocks are perfect. If you want, you could always make a 4-leaf shamrock pizza as well. I've just found that the 3 kind of works really nicely. All right, stretch out leaf number 1, stretch out leaf number 2, and stretch out leaf number 3. And if the dough starts to stick, again, just kind of pick it up and let it stretch back into place. There we go. And try to keep it on the parchment paper. And final leaf. Let's work on this one. And there we go. Okay, so what do you think? I'll work on the end. There we go. And leaves are not perfect either, so it's okay that these aren't perfectly round, that there's like little divots and stuff in them too, right? You would try that. Awesome, Kay. I'm so glad to hear that. What's the temperature of it? Michelle, it's at 425 degrees. Do I ever freeze the extra dough? That is a great question, Margaret. I actually, kind of depends on when we're going to have leftovers. Let's face it. I've got a family. I've got 5 kids. Most of them are teenagers. We don't really have a lot of leftovers ever. So what I usually do if I am making a ton, like tonight, my kids are all with their dad, and so I want to have this for dinner tomorrow night. I'm going to bake the one as an example for you guys, but the other ones, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to half bake them, do the whole baking for 6 minutes thing, add the toppings, and then put it on a cookie sheet, put plastic on top of it and refrigerate it till tomorrow. And then I'm gonna do the final last 6 minutes of the cooking tomorrow. It's my personal favorite way of doing that. That half baking stops the process of the breads rising completely. And then it allows me to, while I have everything out and I already have the mess and everything going. So that's what I'll do. If we don't cook all the pizzas, if we don't eat all the pizzas, I refrigerate them at that point. But yes, you can always freeze dough. Dough is one of those things that freezes really, really well. I would put it in the ball size that you want to use fairly early on, because this doesn't have a second rise. Usually I would say shape it and freeze it before the second rise for most doughs, but this doesn't have a second rise. So the hard part of that is when you pull the dough out of the freezer, it's going to rise and expand even more while it's coming back to room temperature. And so it's going to expand a lot, give you a lot of air bubbles, and that could cause problems. So if you were going to freeze this dough, I would say freeze it before the first rise, which I've never frozen a dough at that point. I don't know. I will have to play with it. It's a good question. I guess you could roll it out into sheets like the actual pizza and freeze it at that point, and then when you bring it out, just put it straight into the oven and cook it a little bit longer. That could work. See, now I just spew when I brainstorm. I apologize. I'll have to think about that one. You are willing to try this or any other bread dough. Thanks for the tips. You are so welcome, Crystal. I love bread doughs. Okay, so our timer has gone off. We have this shape ready. Where's my hot pad holders? Whew. Oh, I forgot my cookie sheet. So same technique, use my cookie sheet, slide it under the parchment. Oops. And pull this out. So you can see it has a nice fluff to it. This is a softer pizza dough. Obviously you could use these same techniques of the dyeing and the coloring with any pizza dough. If you like yours thinner and crispier or cornmealier or however you like yours. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this over here, whoop, on the parchment paper still. Whoop. I'm gonna take this one away and do the 6-minute pre-baking on this one. Oh, no. Oh no. I forgot to fork it. Okay, whew, that would have been a disaster. Okay, let's fork this really fast. And you can see, even with how much forks I put in this, it still has a lot of bubbles in it. This is a nice, soft dough, which is how I like my pizza dough. Again, best part about cooking for yourself is personalizing it, so you can use whatever type of dough, pizza dough recipe you like. I'm gonna have a headache after this. Okay, phew, I'm so glad I remember that. I have made this without remembering that. And it's always a little disastrous. Okay. Yeah, I hear you, oven. Oh. 6 minutes. Start. Okay, so now we're going to bring everything together. And if I was to rip this apart, this would still not be cooked all the way, right? This needs a couple more minutes of cooking. So I have my sauce, which has cooled and gotten nice and thick. I have my chicken that we have cooked. Let's bring that over here. All right, so we have the sauce. We have, move this out of the way a little more. We have the sauce. We have the chicken. Other toppings that I like spinach and mushrooms and bacon, because bacon makes everything better, and artichoke hearts, and then I have mozzarella and parmesan for the topping. So now we're going to put this together, and I get this whole cycle going with my pizzas where the first thing I do is I actually roll out all of the dough, because I want to stop the dough process, right? So I roll out all the doughs and I stack them between their parchment paper. I just have a little pile because I tend to make a lot of pizzas at one time, usually 6. So I stack them and then I start this process, and I'll put one in the oven for 6 minutes. When it comes out, I swap, put the other one in for 6 minutes, top this one, swap, top, swap, top, swap, top. And it's a good way to go. Or you can just pre-bake all the half bakes and then do all the toppings assembly style and then bake. So it just kind of depends on how you like to do that. And this has holes in it. Let's find a spoon that does not have holes in it. Okay. So a friend of mine used to work at a pizza place, Pizza Hut or Domino's or one of those. And so when I was in my 20s, we were roommates, and he taught me how to make a pizza the right way. I used to over sauce and over top all of my pizza. So this is the trick that he taught me. So here's my green pizza, my green sauce, because I like a lot of sauce, and I like a lot of sauce on my breads and on my doughs and on my pastas. So I would over sauce everything. And he's like, really, in reality, over saucing will actually lead to making this take longer to cook, and so you'll end up drying out all of your toppings because you're taking so long to cook your base bread, and really all you're trying to do is hold your toppings on. And so I'm like, I don't believe you. That is not enough sauce, as I watched him do it. And he's like, just try it. So I tried it. I went with his challenge. I did less sauce topping. I kept it pretty thin, and he was right. It was way better. All right, so you can kind of see how you can even see the dough like through this. It's a really, really thin layer. So if you're a thick saucer like me, I challenge you to try less sauce and see what you think. So it's kind of the same thing with the toppings. When you're topping a pizza, if you notice, if you're just getting like pepperoni, they layer that pepperoni on super close together and overlapping. But if you get like an everything pizza, the pepperoni is few and far between. And I was always like, lame. So I'd make my own pizza and I'd put the pepperoni close and then put the sausage close. And I just had so much toppings that again, it would take too long to bake, the crust wouldn't be done, and it would all just fall apart. So you kind of are looking to add the same amount of topping, whether you're doing a single topping or whether you're like this, you're doing like 5 toppings. So you want to, the more things you're going to put on your pizza, the more sparing you want to be. So when I'm making this for my kids, they like the chicken and garlic, the bacon and the cheese, and that's it. So I'll put a little bit more of those things on. But when I'm making it for me and I'm adding the mushrooms and the spinach and the artichoke hearts, I'm putting a little less of everything on. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm not just crazy talking. All right, and I like to use my hands. I find that it's easier, especially with my little OCD heart, to get like my chicken spread out a little bit more evenly if I'm using my hands versus like trying to spoon it. So, but again, if you find working with your hands and that mess hard, then don't. Do whatever you like it. All right, there we go. So yeah, so now we're just going to start doing the toppings. I tend to do like the stickier stuff first, like the artichoke hearts tend to be a little bit more sticky, and then I start with the stuff that's a little bit easier to spread. So the mushrooms are a little easier to spread, and bacon, of course. And this is fresh bacon just made this afternoon, but of course if you like using bacon bits, you can go that route as well. And again, I'm just kind of looking for a nice even coverage. Has anybody seen that movie, Barbra Streisand movie, Mirror Has Two Faces? Okay, when she is in the restaurant and she's talking about creating the perfect bite, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit, that's like my life story. That just speaks to me. So I like cutting things a little bit smaller, like my mushrooms and my chicken and my, you know, I'm a smaller chopper so that I can get everything in one bite versus a big chopper. Personal preference. All right, sorry. Side note. And then the spinach. And then the cheese is the last thing that you put on a pizza. And it kind of helps, the sauce helps hold everything together on the bottom side, and the cheese helps hold everything together on the top side. All right, so I got all the toppings, right? Yes. All right, so mozzarella is kind of the best cheese for pizza, in my opinion, because it melts so beautifully and holds things together really well. I also like to do like a mix of mozzarella and cheddar. In this case, I don't want to put like yellow on this, so I would use like a white cheddar. So this is a mix of mozzarella and white cheddar, but mostly, honestly, mozzarella. And then I also, because this is an Alfredo pizza, I like to add a little bit of parmesan. And just try it again, kind of even coating, trying to get it everywhere. And there we go. What do you think? Bring my hand up a little. All right, so I'm going to pull this, oh, hot, melted my eyelashes. Oh, I do that all the time. I'm pulling this pizza out, and I'm going to pull this pizza and put it in the oven. Ooh. All right, timer. All right, for another 6 minutes. So I'm going to top the next pizza while we're waiting. So now is a good time to answer any other questions from anything that I just talked about. Cindy, this is a really good idea. Thanks for the tip. I was hoping you had bacon. I always have bacon. Love the idea. Thank you so much. Would you use this type of dough for a deep dish? This is not a deep dish dough. I would use a different deep dish. I would use a different dough for deep dish. This is definitely more on the bready side, where a deep dish is more on like the, just a little bit different. I mean, you could, but this ends up having a different like crust on the outside than a deep dish does, but I can work on a deep dish recipe for you. I was just in Chicago and I am dying to make a good Chicago pizza. So I love your cooking and your baking. Salute. Thank you so much. Yummy, looks slummy, love the hair. Thank you. It's new. All right, such a fun idea. All right, so far everybody's liking it. I'm so glad. Has anybody ever made homemade pizza before? And if so, what are your favorites? I just redid a couple of pizza recipes on my site. A couple weeks ago, I redid this one, chicken Alfredo pizza, but like not green. Some people don't like food dye, which I find shocking because I use it a lot. But no, I get it. I get why some people don't. Yeah, but I love food dye and I love themed food and I love creating fun, crazy holiday dinners. And now I'm going to have leftover Alfredo and I'm going to make breadsticks and I'm going to dip it in my green Alfredo sauce. This would actually be an easy way to create, you know, it was brain fart. It was just Dr. Seuss Day, and green eggs and ham is always a fun one to make too. So I'm all about food dye and holidays and lots of goodies. All right, so I'm going to switch the camera so you guys can see. I have already added my sauce again. So I'm going to add my chicken again. And again, the order doesn't really matter. You can put this on, other than the cheese being last. That's important. But other than that, you can kind of just put this on however you want. I don't know. I just tend to like to start with the sticky stuff and the big stuff first, and then fill in all the other spots with everything else. Plus this way I can kind of see if I got even chicken coverage. Now when I like to chop off my artichoke hearts, I like to make sure as I'm cutting them that if any of the outer like skins, I get petals, artichoke petals, is that what you would call those, are nice and soft. If anything's kind of hard, I cut it off and I don't use it. All right, so artichoke chicken with garlic and green onions, artichoke hearts. Now I'm adding mushrooms, which is funny because as a child I always hated mushrooms and I still don't love the texture of mushrooms, but chopped up really small like this and on pizza, I really like them. And of course I love mushroom soup. Have any of you guys tried my mushroom soup recipe? It is amazing. Definitely one of my favorites. All right, bacon. I think I'm gonna have to cut up more bacon. Right. And now cheeses. So again, mozzarella, white cheddar, mix, kind of hold everything together, and nice even coverage. And then some Parmesan to kind of add to that Alfredo flavor we've got going on. Kind of a nice little final. This is probably my favorite pizza to make, but I also have another chicken pizza. Apparently I like chicken pizzas. Chicken salsa pizza, a chicken fajita pizza, where you cook the chicken in a homemade fajita sauce, and then your sauce is actually salsa instead of pizza sauce. It is so good. I got that recipe from my sister, and it's definitely one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, okay, so this one is ready to go. And I really got messy with this one. There's like cheese everywhere. All right, wash my hands again. And now I'm going to move everything out of the way so we can bring the final pizza in and cut it and eat it. Deliciousness. So this small batch of sauce can easily make 4 pizzas if you want to double the dough. But that's, again, if you're being more on the moderate side of the sauce. If you like to dip your final pizza in more sauce, just make 2 and keep the extra sauce, maybe heat it up a little bit and you can dip your pizzas in it or drizzle more on top of your pizzas afterwards if you really love. This is one of my favorite sauces. Not only do I like Alfredo, chicken Alfredo with pasta, I also like breadsticks and just like a bowl of Alfredo. Just use the breadstick as a spoon, basically. This stuff is so good. Okay, make it all the time. You love any kind of meat and a ton of cheese? Yes. I always get the pizzas, like if I do order pizzas, it's always like the meat on meat, on meat, on meat, on meat, on meat, with cheese. Did you get the spinach on? I did not. Thank you very much. Just add that on top of the cheese. Maybe add another little layer of cheese to bring it back together. Good call. It was looking a little less green. Okay. A little bit more cheese. Bring that together. Good call. Thank you so much for paying better attention than me. All right, so let's check on the pizza. Oh, it looks so good. Oh. All right, hold on. I'll show it to you guys in just a second. You know what? I think I'm only gonna bake that one. I'm gonna save this one for tomorrow. Okay. Oh, oh. I got all turned around on my cord. I tripped on my microphone cord. Okay. All right, and here we go. Look how good that looks. Get a little bit more of a close-up. Check that out. So we still are getting like the nice golden edges. We're still gonna get all that melty goodness of cheese, but because we half baked the crust before we added the toppings, our chicken's not gonna be super dried out nastiness. All right, let's get the cutting board. Another reason I like this parchment paper is it's easier to like slide the pizza around, so I can put it on here. Okay, so the big question is, how do you cut a shaped pizza, right? So what I usually do is I usually cut each one of the leaves in half, and then I just have a little sliver for the stem, but that's just me. The kids always like to fight over who gets the little stem sliver. Oh, can you hear that crust cut? Oh, so nice. Oh, it has a great crunch, I can tell. And final slice. There we go. Nice. Okay. See if we can get a cheese pull. Oh, a little baby cheese pull. Oh, come on. Somebody give me a better cheese pull than that. There we go. A better cheese pull. Let's face it, at the end of the day, it is all about a good cheese pull. Anyway, so that is the pizza. That is it. I get to try it now. So good. I don't know if you can see the bottom, but so the bottom, can you hear that? Has a nice crisp bottom, and that's from the pizza stone. I love using a pizza stone to get that nice crisp bottom. And then our top, it's a nice thick crust, which is what I like. Again, if you can do the same technique on a thinner crust pizza. I just like a nice big fluffy crust. And then that way I can take the end of my pizza, my crust, and dip it in more of that Alfredo sauce. So anyway, so that is it. Of my pizza and my lunch and my dinner and my breakfast tomorrow. So good. So next week, nope, I don't want that. I want this. Okay. Next week, I'm going to be making one of my most popular posts on my blog, and that is my candied strawberries. Super easy to make. Super, super easy. Super easy. It will probably be a short video. I'm trying to figure out some other things that I can talk about while we're making it. But so candied strawberries next week, next Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. If you guys have any questions, I will stay on for a couple minutes and answer some questions, but that's it. This is done. Super easy recipe, really fun and easy dinner. It's fun for the kids to make and participate in. And if you guys make the pizza for St. Patrick's Day this year, don't forget to take a picture, put it on social media, give me a tag and a shout out, and I will share it in my Instagram stories because I love sharing it when you guys make my stuff. So thank you so much for watching. And for those of you leaving, have a great night. All right, so catch up on comments. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. You too, Wicked Penny. Can't wait to see that June. It is gonna be so much fun. Nice, thanks for sharing. You're so welcome. Looks amazing. Yes, it does. And it smells amazing. Thank you, Ashley. You were so welcome, Pauline. All right, I'm going to go through and swipe to see if I missed any comments earlier on. Hey, yes, purple hair, blah, blah, blah. Answered. Using food processor. Rhonda and Bill, I'm wondering if you were asking that about my mixer, my universal mixer. It's not a food processor. It's just an open top mixer, and it's the best. It's 800 watts, and so it actually is really good for breads because it kneads them so strongly and so well. You actually get a better rise, and you can actually knead for less time. So I love it, but I also use it for all my cake batters and cookie batters. My Bosch, her name is Vera. She gets used like 2, 3, 4 times a day. The process awesome. Fresh Parmesan, yes. You love your cast iron skillets. Yes, I agree. I do love cast iron skillets. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cast iron skillets. Yes, I could have used cast iron. That's a great call, James. Your husband says you have asbestos fingers. That's awesome. I still do have fingerprints, but not much fingerprint left. Enough that my iPhone can read it though, which is nice. Jill! You should have honked. We probably would have heard it in the video. We totally would have heard it in the video. Jill's one of my favorite friends and neighbors. So happy you got your live feed. You've been watching April the giraffe and she is having a baby at any time. Okay, I watched the giraffe give birth last year. I don't know which one that was. I thought I had a pretty tough stomach. I have 5 kids. I clean a lot of bodily fluids in my time from every orifice. But that was probably the grossest thing I've ever seen, that giraffe birth last year. So I will not go watch that this time. I'm getting sick. I'm getting queasy just thinking about it. I thought I was good. Nope. You make 50 to 100 pounds every day at work. Dang, girl, you're probably like the bread expert. Have you ever made beer rocks? I do not even know what that is. So no, I have not. Looks great. That's neat, clever. Micro needler. Yes, I can use it on my face and the dough. Jill, you're brilliant. You're so smart. That's why we're friends. You love it. There it is. Or freeze extra dough. Temperature of the oven. I think I am all cut up there. Oh, would this be a good dough for a dessert pizza? For dessert pizzas, I usually use my shortbread recipe, so more of a cookie dough, personally. But yes, you could. I would consider adding a little bit more sugar to the dough if you were going to use it for a dessert dough. You've made Hosen pork pizza. Pork pizza. That sounds good. I have had barbecue pizza before. Yeah, I need to work on that. Next time I have leftover sweet pulled pork, which I'm working on a video for that as well, I will put some extras on a pizza. You make it all the time. Spanish on, blah, blah, blah. You do great live. It'd be a hot mess. June, you have been watching long enough to know that I am a hot mess. And I make mistakes all the time and I drop stuff all the time. I'm just willing to laugh at myself. So I'm sure you would do great. You can't wait to see it. Thank you, Ashley. Done over there. Bye, Marie. Brooke Baker. Hannah, you need to see that birth. Go for it. Just don't tell me about it. Seriously. I was going to describe what I didn't like about it, but I think I better not. I'm trying to keep my channel family friendly. Thanks so much. Happy Halloween. You were targeted to the party, but you're glad you made it for the tasting. Well, you can always rewatch. You can always just look on my website. And yeah, it could not be simpler to make. I give tips at the beginning of the video for how to get a better dough. I make tips for my easy to reheat, spreadable, creamy Alfredo. And then of course I talk about all the toppings, but yes, the tasting is my favorite part. So you made it for my favorite part. That's all that matters, right? You're doing St. Patrick's live stream on Thursday. Nice. And you're jealous of my creativity. Oh, Penny, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. You know, the creative side of all of this is the part that I love the most. All of the editing and social media and responding to emails is the part that I struggle with. You know, being an actual businesswoman, that part I struggle with. Good night from the UK. Good night. Wow. Is it night there or morning there? Dang. I guess it's super, super late there, huh? I'm not good at all the time stuff. No, you're not a hot mess. You're very sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I think that's it. I think I'm all cut up. I apologize if I missed something. And yeah, have a wonderful evening and have a great week and enjoy your weekend and happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't get pinched. Catch a leprechaun. Get some gold. I'm gonna eat some chocolate. All right, have a nice night. Bye everybody.